Lord, wow, save us, one man shouted, voice breaking under fire. A SEAL platoon pinned in the canyon. Nowhere to run. Bullets snapped off the rocks. Ricochets sparking the night. They were seconds from being overrun. No cover, no reinforcements, just the dark pressing in. And then from the cliffs above, a single shot rang out. Precise, devastating, unseen. The enemy froze, realizing someone else was here. Not God, not chance. A hidden sniper, watching from the rocks. Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The ridge of Hawksbill Gap Overlook stretched beneath a sky washed in the steel blue haze. Claire Whitman pressed her cheek to the rifle stock, breath even, the scope vibrating slightly with the wind. A clean 3 to 5 knots cut through the tree line, steady but not forgiving. Her voice was low into the throat mic. Argus actual, Overwatch in position, eyes open. The radio hissed, then crackled back, confirming she was live. She let her finger rest just shy of the trigger, waiting. Far below, the Overlook opened to a clearing where Admiral Dana Calder stood with Major Owen Pike, two men who carried decades of buried secrets. Their presence here more dangerous than any convoy. Claire tracked them briefly, then swept the glass outward, searching for threats. That was when she saw it. Not her own reflection, not wind shift, a shimmer on the far ridge, angled metal, then the unmistakable silhouette of a long barrel resting against stone. Another sniper. His crosshairs weren't on Calder. They were locked onto Pike. Claire whispered calculations under her breath. Wind speed, elevation drop, humidity at this altitude, 1,300 meters to target. No time for second guessing. Her finger pulled smooth. The shot cracked through the valley, echo bouncing like rolling thunder. Through the lens, dirt exploded against the second sniper's cheek. He collapsed sideways, weapon spinning into grass. Pike never even knew. Threat neutralized, Claire reported, already shifting back across the valley. At the same moment, Captain Luke Anders came over the net. His voice cut firm on the open channel Kessler's men monitored. Sierra assets secured. Prisoner alive for questioning. It was a lie, sharp and deliberate. A seed meant to grow in enemy ears. Below, Colonel Adrian Kessler stiffened. Claire watched him through the scope, his posture tightening. He barked orders at the men scattered around the clearing. Confusion rippled their formation authority from Admiral Calder, clashing with covert loyalty to Kessler. For 5 golden seconds, both sides hesitated. That hesitation was the crack in the wall. Calder's command voice boomed across the open air. Stand down. Colonel? That's a direct order. Even at distance, Claire saw Kessler's jaw clench. He hated being cornered. Then came the twist of rotor blades. Claire's heart hammered. An unmarked helicopter surged over the ridge, rotors shredding the mountain silence. No insignia, no beacon. Extraction, not support. Through the glass, Kessler's expression changed. Anger melted to something colder anticipation. He took one step toward Calder, hand brushing his sidearm. Claire made her choice before anyone else could. Her reticle dropped to the dirt at his boots. She squeezed once. The round struck so close it kicked earth onto Kessler's polished shoes. A deliberate warning, no miss, no accident. He froze mid-motion, eyes narrowing, realization flooding him. Somewhere out here, unseen, a rifle tracked his heartbeat. The clearing erupted. One of Kessler's men hurled a flashbang toward Calder and Pike. White light tore the air, even from distance. Claire flinched at the bloom. She saw Calder recoil, Pike stumble. Kessler moved, fast, efficient, a veteran of too many betrayals. He broke for the helicopter as it hovered low. A sling line dropped from its side. Claire tracked him, shoulder wound opening red where shrapnel caught him. She exhaled, tightened her cheek weld, ready to fire. but covering fire from his men peppered the ridge, rocks sparking around her barrel. She rolled left, tucking behind a boulder. By the time she swung back into position, the colonel was climbing rope, hauled into the belly of the machine. "Target escaping east," Claire called out, voice even though her chest pounded. "No clean shot. Repeat, no clean shot." Anders came back immediately. "Let him go. Priority is Calder and Pike." The helicopter banked hard, blades carving the air, and vanished beyond the ridgeline. For a long second, only the hum of Claire's suppressed breathing filled her world. Then she clicked to a private channel, words just for herself and Pike. "He's not finished. He's heading back to Colorado." By nightfall, the operation's survivors regrouped in a secure facility buried under the Shenandoah foothills. Concrete walls, humming fluorescence, rows of maps unrolled across the table. Admiral Calder's face was drawn tight, but his voice carried steel. "The film checks out," he said, sliding a strip of microfilm into an analyst's hand. "Robert Whitman's evidence is authentic. Every name, every date. Enough to justify why Foster, he stopped, corrected himself. Why Kessler moved heaven and earth to silence him." Claire stood against the far wall, rifle case at her feet, eyes on the table. She barely breathed as Owen Pike leaned forward. His hair was white, his hands scarred, but his voice carried weight. "You think that was the end of it?" he asked. "It wasn't. Robert told me about another cache. Not the film. Something else." Calder's gaze sharpened. "Another cache." Pike nodded. "Before the stroke. He used a phrase. Said Claire would know where to find it. His words were, 'Where accuracy matters most.'" The room went still. Claire's pulse thudded in her ears. Images surged back, her grandfather's hands on her shoulders, her cheek pressed to wood, the kick of recoil echoing in a hidden valley of the Rockies. San Isabel National Forest. A shooting range no map marked. The place where she had fired 10 consecutive bullseyes at 700 yards. A child's milestone, carved into her bones. Everyone else in the room pictured long range, the furthest target, 1,000 yards. But Claire shook her head slowly. She whispered, almost to herself, "Not the farthest, the most important." Pike's eyes met hers. He saw the answer bloom in her expression before she even said it. 700 yards, she said firmly. "That's where he buried it." The Admiral leaned back, understanding dawning. Kessler had been searching the wrong distance. Robert Whitman's precision wasn't about pushing limits. It was about remembering the moment accuracy mattered most. Claire touched the table edge, steadying herself. For years, she thought her grandfather's lessons were just about shooting straight. Now she realized they had been a map leading straight to the next battle. She closed her eyes briefly, hearing his voice once more. "Make the shot that counts." And she knew the real hunt had only just begun. The rain began as a whisper against the canopy of San Isabel National Forest. Droplets tapped the pine needles, steady and cold, masking the sound of boots against damp soil. Claire Whitman moved at point, Anders behind her. 4 operators fanned wide in disciplined spacing. Their drone lifted skyward, its rotors barely audible under the weather. For 2 minutes it sent clean images, thermal outlines, ridges, the valley floor. Then the screen blinked white, and the feed shredded into static. "Signal jammed," Anders muttered, checking his wrist display. The encrypted channel cracked, died, and went dark. Claire met his eyes. He gave a curt nod, then tapped his watch face twice. They would move on rhythm now, silent, counting seconds together. Hand signals cut the air, fists raised, palms flattened, 2 fingers slashed left. The units shifted like one body, communication stripped to muscle memory. Rain streaked their helmets as they pushed deeper into the valley. Claire felt the weight of memory pressing. She had walked here before, a girl under her grandfather's hand, hitting targets until the skin of her shoulder bruised purple. The echoes of those lessons lived inside her muscles now. She kept moving. The ground fell away. She crawled up to the lip of a stone outcrop and raised her scope. Below, the valley spread like an amphitheater. 6 armed men were spread across the clearing, digging into soil with shovels and short picks. Their gear was military grade, but their coordination was sloppy. They weren't searching at 700 yards. They were tearing up the 1,000 mark, convinced that farther meant smarter. Claire almost smiled. They didn't know Bob Whitman. Then motion pulled her attention to the tree line. 2 figures were climbing toward her position. Careful, slow, too deliberate to be hunters. She shifted, marking their angle of approach. They were here for Overwatch. For her. Claire whispered into her mic, but only static answered. No uplink. No warning. She would have to deal with them herself. She exhaled, then adjusted her reticle, finding the small red canister near the mercenaries' equipment pile. One squeeze. The round punctured the fuel can. A bloom of fire rolled across the clearing, igniting with a sharp whoomp. Men shouted, scattering, rifles up in panic. Dirt and smoke boiled, and their formation fractured. Out of the haze, a new figure strode into view. Tall, silver hair plastered by rain. One arm bound at the shoulder. Colonel Adrian Kessler. He barked orders sharp as blades, gesturing to his men. His hand stabbed toward the line of targets at 700 yards. Claire's stomach tightened. He knew. Somehow, he had pieced together Bob's code. One of the mercenaries snapped a canister, and white smoke erupted, curling thick over the field. Visibility shrank to shadows. Kessler was covering his excavation with a veil. Claire felt movement to her right. She rolled. Just in time. A blade arced down where her throat had been. A man in soaked fatigues crashed against her, knife in hand, face set with grim precision. Her left hand clamped his wrist, twisting hard, bone grinding under pressure. He drove forward, using weight and momentum. She pivoted, locking her boot against a rock, and used the leverage to flip him over. He crashed down the slope, blade spinning away, body tumbling until it vanished into mist. Breath ragged, Claire clipped her harness to a waiting anchor line. She kicked off, sliding down a 10-meter cable, boots striking a lower ledge. She dropped prone, rifle snapping back into position. Through the thinning smoke, she caught sight of the excavation site. Kessler was on his knees, pulling a metal container free from churned earth. Even injured, he moved with certainty, hand pressing it against his chest. Her finger tightened on the trigger. One shot would end it here. One round to the sternum and the list inside that box would never see daylight. But Anders's voice replayed in her head, calm and brutal. We need him alive. He's worth more breathing. She let the breath slip out. The reticle hovered on his chest, then eased away. The choice cut deeper than recoil. Below, Kessler snapped orders. His men closed in, weapons raised, covering his retreat. Smoke grenades hissed, layering the clearing in pale walls. A second later, he was gone, swallowed into the tree line. Silence rolled in after the chaos, heavy and wet. The fire smoldered in the distance, the rain hissing against it. Claire scanned the ground. Then she saw it, half buried in churned mud, glinting faint beneath ash, was a fragment of chain. She slid down, boots sinking in muck, and pulled it free. A dog tag, battered, edges sharp with years of wear. She rubbed dirt away with her thumb. The letters pressed clear. Whitman, Robert E. Numbers beneath it. Coordinates. Not for this valley. Not for any cabin. The lines pointed east. She flipped it over. On the back, carved with a knife's tip, one word waited. Checkmate. Claire's throat went tight. It wasn't just another clue. It was a command. Her grandfather's hand reaching forward through time. Anders appeared at her side, eyes sweeping the field. He's got the box. Claire held up the tag. We've got the key. Anders's gaze hardened. Rain slid off his helmet as he spoke the words flat. Then the game isn't over. It's just starting. The underground vault smelled of metal and ozone, Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, reflecting off steel doors that lined the corridor. Claire followed the bank manager in silence, portfolio clutched tight, eyes scanning every shadow. They stopped at a numbered drawer marked 1974. A clerk slid the long box onto the table inside a private room, then left, the heavy door shutting behind him. The quiet pressed in, absolute, like the air itself was holding its breath. Claire turned the key. The mechanism clicked with reluctant weight, unlocking something that had been sealed for nearly 50 years. Inside, a stack of objects lay waiting. A leather-bound journal with Bob Whitman's initials, a USB drive wrapped in tape, a faded Polaroid photo, and a sealed envelope addressed only with her name. Her hand trembled as she unfolded the photograph. 5 men in fatigues, arms around each other, Berlin in the background. In the center, her grandfather, younger but unmistakable. To his left, Owen Pike. To his right, Adrian Kessler, circled in red ink. She broke the seal of the envelope. Paper crackled, fragile with age. The handwriting was steady, her grandfather's style, each stroke deliberate. If you are reading this, it means the game has not ended. Aim for what matters most. Claire inserted the USB drive into the bank's secured reader. The screen flickered, then stabilized into a grainy video. Tungsten light illuminated a younger Bob Whitman. His hair was darker, his eyes sharper, but the voice carried the same gravel she remembered. "If you're seeing this, I couldn't finish the mission," he said. "That means the shot that mattered was never taken. Listen carefully. It isn't about killing the traitor. It's about stopping his legacy. Aim for what matters most." The video ended with static. Claire leaned back, her breath shallow. This wasn't just evidence. It was instruction, a final order from the only man she had ever trusted without question. Leaving the vault, Claire buttoned her jacket to hide the portfolio pressed against her side. The lobby glowed with polished marble, but outside the tall windows, Denver looked wrong. The rhythm of the street had shifted. Traffic lights cycled, but cars idled unnaturally at corners. Pedestrians thinned out, their absence louder than a crowd. Someone had pulled strings to clear space. She walked out with steady steps. Sunlight glared off glass towers, making her squint. At the corner of 17th Street, a man in a gray suit glanced at her too long, hand pressed to his ear. His jacket bulged at the ribs. Claire adjusted her stride, closing distance fast. At 3 meters, she swung her leather portfolio up, cracking it across his jaw. As he reeled back, she drove her knee into his midsection. The man folded, gasping, dropping sideways onto the sidewalk. She never broke pace, her face calm, steps even, as if brushing off a stranger's stumble. The portfolio tucked neatly back under her arm, the contents safe. Anders's voice buzzed through her earpiece. "Eyes on you from the rooftop. Black SUV stationed at Welton. They're waiting." Claire didn't answer. She turned onto Welton Street. The SUV sat like a predator in the sun, windows blacked out, engine humming low. She kept her pace steady, pulse thrumming in her ears. The rear door opened. Colonel Adrian Kessler stepped out. He looked immaculate despite the bandaged shoulder gray vest, tie knotted sharp, silver hair combed back. Only the tightness in his eyes betrayed the pressure he carried. Claire stopped 10 feet away. The air buzzed with silence. Denver's usual noise replaced by a stage built for this encounter. Her voice cut the space like glass. "Checkmate." Kessler's smile was thin, practiced. "So Bob taught you his favorite word." His eyes flicked to the portfolio. "You have something that belongs to me." Claire tilted her head slightly. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing." Kessler took one step closer. His men watched from the SUV, hands near weapons but hesitant in broad daylight. He spoke with calm disdain. "You think you've cornered me, but I still own every piece on this board." Claire's reply was soft, almost casual. "Not every piece. Some of your men already chose a different side." The words landed like a stone in water. Kessler's eyes narrowed, the faintest twitch breaking his composure. For a fraction of a second, his gaze darted toward the SUV, to the men inside. Claire saw it. Doubt, suspicion, the fracture she wanted. Kessler exhaled, mask sliding back into place. You play dangerously, Miss Whitman, but you should remember I invented this game. She didn't blink, and you forgot who kept score. The standoff stretched, every second balanced on the edge of violence, but Kessler didn't draw. He turned with deliberate calm, stepped back into the SUV, and shut the door. The engine revved, the vehicle pulling away into downtown traffic. Claire didn't move until the taillights disappeared. Only then did she allow herself a breath, slow and controlled. Anders's voice came over the comms, rough with relief. You rattled him. Good work. Another voice followed Admiral Calder, patched in from Washington. We've seen enough. He's bleeding authority. Next step is containment. West Virginia. Finish it there. Claire adjusted the strap of her portfolio and started walking, her shadow long in the afternoon sun. She didn't smile, didn't relax. The game had shifted. Yes, but it wasn't over. Not yet. The forest of Monongahela was black with midnight. No moon broke the clouds, only the faint green wash of night vision across Claire's goggles. Each step pressed damp earth, each breath measured against the silence of trees that had watched wars long before hers. Captain Anders raised a fist, halting the line. Ahead, buried under tangled roots, was the archway Bob Whitman had drawn in his journal nearly 50 years earlier, a forgotten tunnel carved in the days of bootleg whiskey. Now their entry point into the most dangerous ground of Kessler's empire. Torres, the breaching specialist, ran gloved hands along the stone. He tapped one seam, then another. Mortar crumbled under pressure, exactly where Bob's notes had marked. With quiet precision, they lifted bricks one by one, until a gap wide enough for a crawl yawned open. Claire slid in first. The tunnel swallowed her, damp and narrow, air heavy with mildew. The others followed, boots scraping softly against ancient concrete. Over comms, the diversion team signaled small arms fire at the north perimeter. Pulling guards like moths to flame, they pushed forward. Water dripped from overhead, echoing like a metronome. Claire traced each corner against the old sketch in her hand. Even through decades, Bob's memory of the compound proved exact. They moved with purpose, every detail falling into place as if time itself had rehearsed them. At last, the tunnel ended in another wall, this one thin, patched with careless concrete. Torres cut carefully, and stone dust drifted into the dark. They slipped through into the wine cellar. Shelves lined with crates repurposed for storage. The smell of oil and gunpowder hung heavy. Inside perimeter, Claire whispered. Anders clicked his mic once. Confirmation. Phase 2 complete. They climbed narrow stairs. Above them, the main house sat quiet, but sensors and cameras blinked red on Anders's tablet. Torres scrambled the feed, giving them a window of minutes. Claire steadied her rifle, then shook her head. This part was hers. Bob's journal had been explicit. The confrontation must be face to face. Only then will he reveal his weakness. She signaled the team to hold position in the hallway. Then she turned the handle of a heavy oak door and stepped into the study. The room smelled of leather and ink. Bookshelves climbed to the ceiling. 3 computer screens glowed on the desk, streams of encrypted chatter spilling lines of code. In the chair sat Adrian Kessler, his hair silver, his suit pressed, though his bandaged shoulders strained against the fabric. He looked up slowly, as if he had been waiting. Miss Whitman, he said. His voice was smooth, detached. Of course it would be you. Claire leveled her pistol, steady. Her finger hovered near the trigger. It's over. Colonel, your network is collapsing. Your allies are in custody. You've lost. Kessler smiled faintly. He opened a drawer and lifted a small black device, a detonator. His thumb rested casually over the switch. You misunderstand. I don't intend to be paraded in court like a relic. If I go down, this place goes with me. And you, Claire's pulse quickened, but she forced her arm to lower slightly. Her voice stayed calm, deliberate. No, you won't, because you care too much about what comes after. You want your name dissected in classrooms, whispered in intelligence briefings. You want to be studied, not forgotten. His eyes sharpened, but his thumb didn't press. She kept pressing the opening. If you detonate, you're just another coward, a cornered traitor who blew himself up with his secrets. No legacy, no legend, just ash. The ticking of an antique clock on the mantel filled the silence. Kessler's jaw tightened. The weight of years pressed between them spies who had fought in shadows, one betrayed and the other trained to finish the hunt. Finally, Kessler exhaled. His hand moved from the switch, slowly, deliberately. He set the detonator down on the desk. Bob Whitman, he said quietly, trained you well. The door burst open. Anders and two operators stormed inside, weapons raised. They moved fast, pinning Kessler, wrenching his arms behind him. Steel cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. Claire holstered her pistol, stepping closer. Adrian Kessler, you are under arrest for treason, espionage, and conspiracy against the United States. Kessler met her eyes. There was no fury, only something stranger respect twisted with disdain. Remember this, he murmured as they dragged him out. Men like me don't vanish. There will always be another game. Claire held his stare until he was gone, the study empty save for the quiet tick of the clock. The detonator still sat on the desk, harmless, but the weight of what could have been lingered heavy in the air. Weeks later, the leaves of Arlington blazed red and gold. The cemetery was hushed except for wind rolling through branches. Claire walked alone among the white headstones, dressed blue sharp against autumn's fire. She stopped at her grandfather's grave. The inscription was simple. Master Sergeant Robert E. Whitman, United States Army. Fidelity, bravery, integrity. No ceremony blared now, no speeches, just silence, the kind he had always preferred. From her pocket, she drew the dog tag, the one etched with a single word, checkmate. She placed it gently atop the stone, fingers lingering on the cold metal. Admiral Calder's voice echoed in her memory, offering her a position in a special counterintelligence unit, a chance to chase men like Kessler before their betrayals reached daylight. She hadn't answered then. Now, she whispered to the grave, I think you'd approve. She pictured the study, the detonator untouched, the moment she hadn't fired. The final shot wasn't lead or steel. It was restraint, choosing justice over revenge, aiming not at the man, but at the legacy he craved. Her lips tightened in a quiet vow. The final shot always goes where it matters most. A breeze stirred, scattering crimson leaves over the headstone. She stood, shoulders squared, and walked on. The world would keep producing men like Kessler, but so long as she carried Bob's lessons, there would also be someone ready to meet them. And somewhere, in the silence between heartbeats, the game would always end the same. Checkmate.